All right. Thank you guys for joining. I'll start off by introducing myself. I go by ArbThief on X. My name is Nick. I've been arbitrage betting now for about 10 months. And in those 10 months, I've been able to make over $100,000, which is crazy to think about because I was a horrible, horrible gambler before I found arbitrage betting. But since I started arbitrage betting, it has completely changed my life to the fact that I'm able to spend more time with my family, give my family a better life. And the best part is I do it as a side hustle. I still work my regular 9 to 5 and then make all this extra money on the side. So the purpose of this training is to kind of show you guys exactly what I do so that you can replicate my process and become profitable arbitrage bettors yourself. I also have TheArbFather on the call today. So we'll go through the training slides and then we'll open it up for some Q&A with both TheArbFather and myself. But I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, so the agenda for today's training, we're going to start off with what is arbitrage betting. We'll then move into how do I get started, bankroll management, promo conversions, pregame arbitrage betting, live arbitrage betting, dealing with mistakes, navigating limits, tips and tricks. In a typical training, we would do some live demos. We're going to skip those today just so that we can jump to some Q&A. But we're going to dive in depth into all these topics here. So the first slide is what is arbitrage betting? So for those of you that already know what arbitrage betting is, this is going to seem a little simple for you, but I did want to start at the very bottom ground floor so that someone who has no idea what arbitrage betting is can really learn to understand before we move on with the training. So arbitrage betting is a practice where a sports bettor places bets on both sides of one event to guarantee a profit regardless of the result. So there are a few requirements for an arbitrage bet. First is you need 2 sports books. You cannot arbitrage bet with only one. You need one event and then opposite outcomes of that event. So for example, LeBron James over 5.5 assists and LeBron James under 5.5 assists. If he plays, one of these outcomes has to happen. These are opposite events and opposite outcomes where one of them has to happen. Example 2, let's assume the Yankees are playing against the Red Sox. You have Yankees money line and Red Sox money line. You can't have a tie in baseball. If they play against each other and the game goes on, there will be an outcome where one of these teams wins. And then the final requirement is the plus money odds number must be a greater number than the minus money odds number, or both odds must be plus money. So a few examples below. We have plus 150 and minus 130. That plus 150 number is a larger number than 130. And then example 2, plus 110 and plus 105. And this is kind of an easy one to visualize. So if you place $100 on the plus 110 side, you have a total payout of $210. If you place $100 on the plus 105 side, you have a total payout of $205. In this situation, we only wagered $200 total, but we're going to get either 210 or 205. So you're either going to profit $5 or $10. That's an arbitrage bet. And just a few examples of ARBs that I've hit over the last couple of months. So in this example here, we have New York Knicks minus 2.5 for the first half at plus 154 on FanDuel. On the right side, we have Sixers plus 2.5 for the first half at minus 110 on Caesars. You can see on FanDuel, I bet $500 for a payout of $1,270. On Caesars, I bet $665 for a payout of about $1,270. And then you can see the math at the bottom. So total amount that I wagered, $500 on FanDuel, plus $665 on Caesars, for a grand total of $1,165. Possible payouts, you have $1,270 on either side. and then you do the math. So you take your lowest possible payout, subtract the total amount that you wagered, and you have your guaranteed profit. So in this arbitrage bet, I guarantee myself a profit of $104 no matter what happens with this first half. Again, we're finding ways to guarantee ourselves a profit no matter what happens. In example 2, so on the left side, we have bookmaker, Chicago Bears plus 6.5 for the first half at plus 128. On the right side, we have my bookie, Green Bay Packers minus 6.5 for the first half at minus 110. You can see the math here as well. So total amount that I wagered, 370 on bookmaker, 442 on my bookie for a grand total of 812. Possible payouts are about $843 on each side. And then again, you do the math. You take your lowest possible payout, subtract the total amount that you wagered, and you get your guaranteed profit. So in this case, I used 2 offshore books just to show that if you're in a state where you don't have your typical domestic sports books, you can still arbitrage bet with offshore books. All right, now how do I get started? So first, you want to determine the sports books that are available to you. You then want to determine your bankroll, sync to Picket, sign up for arbitrage software, take advantage of any new user promos and conversions, set up arbitrage filters, figure out a system, pregame arbitrage bets and small amounts, and graduate to live arbitrage bets and larger amounts. So we're going to dive into all these steps here that you fully understand exactly what you need to do. So the first one here is to determine your sports books. I have separated these into a few different slides so that we can kind of talk about them in different groups. So on this first slide here, we have your typical domestic sports books, and I've separated them by those that are quick to limit and those that are slower to limit. So first, those that are quick to limit on the left. You have Bet365, Bally's, Bet Rivers, ESPN Bet, and Fanatics. So these books here all offer pretty good deposit bonuses that you can take advantage of. However, they will limit you within a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks if you're really lucky. So my advice for these books, just hammer whatever pregame and live arbitrage bets you can while they're available to you. Take advantage of those new user promos, make as much money as possible, and then once they limit you, just cash out and move on. On the right side, you have those that are slower to limit. So you have FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and Caesars. So with these, my recommendation is just to stick to live arbs because they will help prolong your accounts on these sports books. And I'll explain why later. But these 4, you want to make them last as long as you can. Only exception being FanDuel, because even once you do get limited on FanDuel, they limit you to about 10% of what a max bet would be. And on FanDuel, that's still 100, 200, 300. Last weekend on Matt Stafford's passing yardage line, I was able to get over $1,000 down. And that's on a player prop on FanDuel. So even with limits, FanDuel is still very profitable. All right, on this slide here, you have your sweepstake books and sportsbook exchanges. So on the left side, we have Fliff first. Fliff is great for pregame and live arbs. They have a $500 max bet, which is great. If you have Fliff available to you in your state, I definitely recommend adding it. And it's legal in almost every state, which is great. Underneath that, you have Rebet. So Rebet's good for pregame arbs. The only thing with Rebet is I would submit the Rebet side first, just because sometimes they will reject your bets. They have gotten better with that, but you always want to make sure the Rebet side first goes through before you move on to the other side of the arbitrage bet. Underneath that, you have Thrills. So Thrills is okay for pregame arbs. There aren't as many opportunities as the first 2 that I just mentioned, but you will see an occasional arb with Thrills, which is nice. Moving to the right side, this is a new one here, Sportsino. They're good for pregame arbs. However, they are very quick to limit. I just added Sportsino last week. I got limited, I think, within 2 days. So make a couple bucks in those 2 days and then just cash out and don't worry about it. But their lines are pretty bad, so take advantage of them while you can. Then underneath that, we have 2 of my favorites, Novig and ProfitX. So these are great for arbitrage betting. And the reason why is they're both arbitrage friendly. They both do not limit you. You can bet as much as you can, as long as there's liquidity there, which means there's only a certain amount that you can bet on each line before the liquidity dries up. and then you can no longer place any more money on that specific line. So my advice for no vig and profit X, if an arbitrage bet pops up, bet that side first, take advantage of whatever liquidity is available, and then move on to the other side of the arbitrage bet. If you bet the other side first, there's no guarantee that the liquidity will still be there for no vig or profit X. All right, and here's just a map of the United States. I found this online about a month ago. It shows the states where these social sports book or sweepstake book apps are available. And you can see it's pretty much every state. I think there are only 4 states here where you can't use your Flip, Free Bet, No Vig, Profit X, and Thrills sportsbook. So if you're in a state like California or Florida or Texas where you don't have your typical domestic sportsbooks, you can use these plus some offshore books and still make a ton of money, which is nice. Then after that, you have your offshore sportsbook. So Bovada, Bet Online, Bet US, MyBookie, Bet 105, and Bookmaker. I recently ventured into the offshore worlds at the start of this month. I added MyBookie, Bet 105, and Bookmaker. These two down here, Bet 105 and Bookmaker, do not limit you, which is great. That's exactly what we want as an arbitrage bettor. So definitely recommend adding those if you need additional sports books to arbitrage bet with. I included these 6 books specifically because these are what I would consider to be reputable offshore sports books where I haven't heard of any horror stories of people not being able to withdraw or get their money out. So you can feel safe depositing into these books and not feel like you're going to lose your money. They also come with huge deposit bonuses, which is great, but those also come with playthrough requirements. So when you're arbitrage betting, you'll fly through those playthrough requirements. Next, you want to determine your bankroll and how much you can play with. So whatever your starting bankroll is, you want to take the total number of sports books that you're using and divide by that number. At a minimum, I always recommend starting with about $3,000 and then putting $1,000 in 3 sports books each to start. However, that's too much for you and that's just not going to work at this time. I started with only $600 total with my arbitrage betting, so it's not required. If you have a very small bankroll like I had, I would start with only 2 sports books. Personally, I started with FanDuel and DraftKings at the time just because they had instant withdrawals, which I needed because if I placed an arbitrage bet, all my funds would go from one sports book to the other, depending on which side won, and then I'd have to withdraw and replenish the other sports book. So if you're starting with a really small bankroll, I would only start with 2 sports books and just ensure that they have quick withdrawals so that you can move your money around. And then next, if you have a larger bankroll, you can expand to 5 or more sports books for some more arbitrage opportunities. The more sports books you have, the more arbitrage opportunities you will see. Next, you want to sync to Picket. So Picket allows you to log in with your sportsbook login information and tracks all of your bets. So as an arbitrage bettor, this is very important. We don't want to manually track all of our bets and see how much we're actually profiting with each. So on the left side here, you can view yesterday, today, or tomorrow, how many bets you had, whether you went up or down. If you're arbitrage betting, it should always go up. Total amount that you wagered, your return on investment, and what your record was. I probably check Picket maybe 3 to 4 times a day just to see how much volume I got down, how my bets are settling, how much I'm making. Very beneficial to have. Then on the right side, you can filter by your month, by your week, by your year, by certain sports books. So wherever you want to filter your results, you can do that on Picket. You can see in this example here, I made $30,000 with 0 losing days in the month of April. Those types of results are possible if you put in enough time with arbitrage betting. Next, you want to sign up for arbitrage software. So I'm sure as many of you know, I am an affiliate for Oddsjam. So there are 2 main plans that you could take advantage of. There's the gold plan, which gives you access to pregame arbitrage bets, and they'll usually have an ROI between 2 and 4%. And then the platinum plan, which gives you live arbitrage bets, which usually have an ROI between 4 and 10%, and sometimes even higher. You can make a ton of money with just the gold plan, but if you really want to take it to the next level and have some huge months, I definitely recommend the platinum plan. The link in my bio gives you a 7-day free trial to the software, and then my promo code gives you 35% off. I started with a 7-day free trial myself. I made enough money in that trial to pay for my platinum subscription, and I haven't looked back since. And the best part is it's a risk-free trial, so try it for 7 days. doesn't work for you, just cancel before the 7 days are up and you didn't spend any money. Next, you want to take advantage of any promo conversions that are available to you for whatever sports books are in your area. They all have their own form of a new user promo. They also usually offer like profit boosts or other promotions you can take advantage of pretty much every day, which is free money for us. And just a few examples shown below. So BetMGM gives you $1,500 cash back if your first bet loses. ESPN Bet, same thing. Fanatics gives you a free $1,000. They all have their own version of a new user promo. So definitely take advantage of that free money. And we're going to walk through exactly how to convert a few of these. So Oddsjam has what's called a promo converter. I use it from the website. I'm pretty sure it's on the app as well. So you go to the website. You would then click promo converter. You would then click edit promo and then select your sports books where you have the promo. You would select the promo type and the total bet amount of that promo. And this shows all the different promotions that you can convert. So qualifying bets, no sweat bets, site credits, bonus bets, and profit boosts. And we're going to walk through 3 different examples. So on the left side here, we have if DraftKings gives you a $100 bonus bet, which is very possible. You would type it into the converter, and it would tell you, okay, go to DraftKings, place your $100 bonus bet on Lehigh Moneyline at plus 370. Then go to FanDuel, bet on Richmond Moneyline at minus 400 for $300. If you place these bets in these amounts, you will guarantee yourself a profit of $70 or $75. In the past, when I got a bonus bet, I would play some crazy parlay that would never hit, and that would waste all my bonus bets. This tells you exactly how to convert it to guaranteed money. On the right side, you have BetMGM. Let's assume they give you a 50% profit boost on $100. So in this example here, it's telling you go to BetMGM, bet your $100 on UTSA money line. It was plus 220 with the profit boost. It's now plus 330. Then go to FanDuel, bet $300 on Army money line at minus 240. If you place those bets in those amounts, you will guarantee yourself a profit of $25 or $30. So again, profit boosts and bonus bets are free money for us that we can guarantee ourselves using this promo converter. And the last one, we have a $100 Caesars no sweat bet. So in this example here, it's telling us go to Caesars, place your $100 no sweat bet on USC moneyline at plus 235. Then go to FanDuel, place $190 on Notre Dame moneyline at minus 265. If you place those bets in those amounts, there are 2 different outcomes here. The USC side will win, and you'll guarantee yourself a profit of about $45 just because of the specific amounts that you bet in. Or the Notre Dame side will win. You'll lose some money initially, but then they'll give you a $100 bonus bet, and you would follow this process here to convert that bonus bet at about 70% and then make back the money that you lost and then some. So in either outcome, you'll make about $40 to $45. Again, another way of making guaranteed money for yourself using a promo from a sportsbook. Next, you want to set up your arbitrage filters. So filters can be applied on the Oddsjam app or the desktop website. So first, you want to select your sportsbooks, then select your percentage, your ROI. Personally, I use 2%. I wouldn't go much lower than that just because the risk of making a mistake with like a 1% ARB where you're only going to make, $5 to $10 probably isn't worth the risk. I leave all other fields as all. One exception being when I'm live arbing, I'll remove tennis just because the lines move very fast, unless it is a 5-set tennis match, which are actually going on right now with the Australian Open. So feel free to live arb with tennis at the moment. You'll then click save and then activate alerts so that when there is a pregame arbitrage opportunity, the Oddsjam app will send you a notification. Next, you want to figure out a system that works for you. So this is probably one of the most important steps. You can ARB from your phone, or you can ARB from your laptop, your PC, plus another monitor. When I first started arbitrage betting, I went out and bought a laptop, I bought a monitor, But I was just going to sit at my computer every night and just lock on these ARBs as they popped up. For whatever reason, that didn't work for me. I then switched to my phone, and it's been much more successful for me. However, there are successful arbitrage bettors with both setups. So try both, figure out which one works for you, and then stick with that system. Just get more comfortable, get faster, because in the end, speed is one of the most important aspects here, and you want to get really comfortable with one system. Next, you want to practice with small amounts and pregame ARBs. So you will make some mistakes in the beginning. And when I say mistakes, I'm referring to you place one side of an arbitrage bet, you go to lock in the other side, and then you see the line has closed or the line has moved, and there's a chance you could possibly lose some money in that situation. So if you're going to make a mistake, you want it to be in a small amount. Figure out your process, get faster, and then as you get faster, you can start to increase your bet sizes. I would then do the same thing for live arbitrage bets. So again, start with small amounts for live arbitrage bets. The lines move even faster. And then once you're comfortable with live arbs, again, increase your bet sizes, and you'll start to see some real profit with your arbitrage bets. Next, we're going to talk about pregame arbitrage betting. It's exactly what it sounds like, an arbitrage bet that is placed prior to a game starting. So these frequently occur a few hours before game time, but also throughout the day at random times. And there are two primary ways to pregame arbitrage bet. We're going to talk about both. On the left side, you have your typical Oddsjam notification. So whenever there's an arbitrage opportunity where two sports books are way off, you can make a profit by betting both sides. The Oddsjam app will send a notification directly to your phone, which is great because you can be at the gym, going for a walk, just hanging around your house, and you'll be notified when there's an opportunity that can possibly make you some money. I lock in probably 5 to 10 of these per day just from these notifications, so they make me a ton of money. In this example here, you can see it was a 15% arbitrage opportunity for James Harden's three-point line for over 3.5, under 3.5. So you'd open that up, you'd use one-click bet slips if you have that option, but we'll walk through that shortly. Then the second way to pregame arbitrage bet is just by browsing the pregame feed. So personally, I browse this feed every day between like 5 and 7 p.m. Eastern time, just because that's when you'll see the most action for especially a large NBA slate. You have injuries, you have lineup changes, and all those factors end up in the odds changing for specific props, money lines, spreads, all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye on this feed 2 hours before game time and just pick off whatever pops up. Sometimes I'll have like $30,000 in pregame action just from browsing this pregame feed. So a ton of money to be made with this. All right, and just some pregame arbitrage bet strategy. So on the left side here, we have what's called an Oddsjam bet slip, and we're going to go through it from top to bottom. So this was a 14% arbitrage opportunity. It's with Caesars and FanDuel. As you go further down, you see it's for player strikeouts. On the left side, we have Caesars. So Cole Reagan's under 7.5 strikeouts at -148. Reagan's over 7.5 strikeouts on FanDuel at +280. See, underneath that, you have your one-click bet links. If it says game, it takes you to the game within the sportsbook. If it says bet, it actually pulls up the bet slip within the sportsbook, which is huge. Underneath that, you have the odds at the sportsbooks that triggered and also the odds at other sportsbooks, which is very important to take a look at. So on the left side, Caesars was -148. The other sportsbooks, we have Pinnacle -163, Fliff -175. Caesars is a value, but it's not that far off from the other sportsbooks. However, on the other side, FanDuel is +280. The other sportsbooks +108, +121, and +110. This is way off from the other sportsbooks. You would consider FanDuel to be the expected value side, the outlier. This is the line that is more likely to correct back to the other sportsbooks. Given that this line is going to correct, I would hurry up and get down whatever money you feel comfortable with on the FanDuel side before that line moves. Once you lock that in, you can then go ahead and place the other side of the arbitrage bet on Caesars If Caesars moves or close, that's okay. FanDuel was so far off that there are other sports books that you can go to complete that arbitrage bet. So the advice here is take a look at the slip, figure out which side is the plus EV side or the outlier, and then get whatever money down that you feel comfortable with on that specific bet, just because it's more likely to move back to the other sports books. Just some pregame arbitrage bet strategy. So you'll select the pre-match option on the arbitrage tool. You'll then open up the arbitrage slip, similar to the Reagan slip on the prior slide. You'll confirm that both bets still have the stated odds. So this is just a trick to confirm that. So this top portion here shows the odds that triggered the arbitrage alert. So minus 148 on Caesars, plus 280 on FanDuel. The bottom half shows you what the odds are currently, and this will update in real time. So if it says this, that means those odds are still the same. This is still an arbitrage opportunity. So once you can confirm that the lines haven't moved, I would then pull up the bet slips within the sports books, use one-click bet if possible, then type in the bet amounts to make the payouts match on both sides, confirm that the odds haven't moved again, and then lock in both bets. And again, there's one tip here that if one sports book is way off, you want to lock on that bet as soon as possible and take advantage of that value, just because that side is more likely to change and move back to the other sports books. And now live arbitrage betting, again, exactly what it sounds like. These are arbitrage bets that are placed during a game. They occur throughout the whole game, and you'll see new arbitrage opportunities pretty much every second when you're live arbing. And they typically have a much higher ROI, which is exactly what we want. So my top advice, if you are live arbitrage betting, is just to be persistent. There are times when I'm browsing the feed and I won't see anything I'll see a lot, but I won't lock in anything for like 15, 20 minutes. And then other times I'll lock in, 5 live arbitrage bets in 10 minutes. So you really have to stick with it. You have to be patient with the arbitrage opportunities that pop up. A lot of them have the odds change within seconds, but there are some that will sit for a minute, maybe 2 minutes. And these are the ones that you want to take advantage of. And just some live arbitrage bet strategy. So first, you want to log into the sports books first. If you're already logged in, you're going to save yourself a couple seconds, which is very important. Speed is crucial with arbitrage betting. You want to select the live in-play option on the arbitrage tool. Open up the arbitrage slip, similar to the Reagan slip that we just talked about. Confirm that both bets still have the stated odds. So very similar to pregame, you want to confirm that the odds haven't changed. Open up the bets within the sports books and use one-click bet if possible. Type in the bet amounts to make the payouts match on both sides. So this is one tip that I give everyone, is not to use an arbitrage calculator. Maybe you can in the beginning just to get comfortable, but as you get more comfortable with your system, don't use an arbitrage calculator. You're going to save a ton of time, again, which is crucial because speed is very important with arbitrage betting. Just do your best to make the payouts match on both sports books. Then confirm that the odds haven't moved. With live arbing, there's something called camping the arb, which means you're going to open up both bet slips in both sports books and just sit on it for a minute. You'll see the odds go from profitable to not profitable. If you see them keep jumping back and forth, just watch it for a minute. Wait for it to come back to something that you feel comfortable with, which is a profitable opportunity. And then once it's there, lock them in as soon as possible. I would only sit on it for maybe a minute or two, and if it doesn't come back, then just move on to the next one. And again, with live arbs, the lines move much faster, so you want to lock them in as soon as you can confirm that the odds have not changed. Next, we're going to talk about dealing with mistakes. So as I said earlier, you will make mistakes when you are arbitrage betting. And when I say mistakes, I'm referring to you place one side of an arbitrage bet on one sports book, you go to place the other side and the line changed or the line moved, and you need to figure out what to do. So there are a few options that you have. So option one should always be to cash out your bet if possible. So some sports books will allow this: FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars. So if you have that option to cash out first, even if you're going to lose a couple bucks. Option two, if the line moved and got worse, place the bet anyway. You can make the payouts match on both sports books to minimize the amount that you could possibly lose. But this is a better option than just letting one side ride. It's better to take a small loss in this event than to take a huge loss and lose an entire side of a bet for a couple $100. Option 3, if options 1 and 2 aren't available, check other sports books to see if the line is posted somewhere else. This is very helpful for pregame arbitrage betting just because you have the time to check other sports books. So you just take a look and see what else is out there before you have to settle for option 4, which is just letting it ride and hoping your bet wins. So this should always be your last resort. I've had to do this many times. Sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose, but sometimes you don't have a choice and you just have to let it ride. All right, next, this slide here, probably the question I get the most from everyone is how to navigate limits. How do I not get limited? How do I arb once I do have limits? We're going to talk about both. So on the left side, to prolong your accounts, you want to stick to live arbs, and it will help your accounts last longer. And here's why. So with pregame arbitrage bets, the sportsbooks can see that you're beating CLV, or closing line value. That means if you took a bet during the day, let's say the odds were plus 150 during the day, but then as the line closes and the game's about to start, it's at minus 120. You got a much better price at plus 150 than what it closed at minus 120. If you consistently beat that closing line, sportsbooks can see that. They'll label you as a sharp, they'll limit your accounts, and they'll try to cut as much profit as we can make. So with live arbs, they can't see that. There is no closing line value for a live bet because the odds are constantly changing throughout the game. Next, don't always bet the max. So personally, I only bet maybe $500 at most on the minus side, maybe a little bit more. If you're consistently betting thousands on each side, you're going to set off some red flags and you'll get limited even faster. So I'd be careful with how much you're betting on each side. Next, also, I would avoid error lines. So when you see a line that is a clear error, it's going to look juicy, but I would try to avoid it. And a great example here is I had an unlimited Caesars account about 6 months ago. There was a college baseball money line, which was a clear error. It was like a 20% arb. I threw a couple $1,000s on it, made a nice profit in the moment, but the next day my Caesars account was limited. So be careful with error lines. Some sports books will even void those. It's not worth the risk if it's a clear error. And then last, try to look like a degenerate better. An occasional long shot parlay is okay. Every Sunday, I'll place a first touchdown scorer parlay. Haven't hit one yet, but it makes me look like I'm a recreational bettor. That's what we want the sports books to think. And then on the right side, arbing with limits. So now that you have limits, it kind of gives you some peace of mind knowing that you're not going to get limited anymore. It can't get any worse, especially on FanDuel. So even when you have a limited FanDuel account, you can still make a ton of profit, which is nice. When you are arbing with limits, you want to check to see what your max bet is on each line before locking in either side. So here's why. Let's say you have an arb between FanDuel and no vig. If you bet the no vig side and you get down $500 to win 1,000, then you go to the FanDuel side and you try to match that. Well, FanDuel won't let you get down that much money. You're not going to be able to make the payouts match on both sportsbooks. So check how much you can get down first before you're placing your bet, just to make sure you have the ability to place both sides regardless of what your limits are. Next, books like Fliff, Novig, and ProfitX are huge once you have limits, just because they don't limit. Fliff has a $500 max bet, but that's more than enough for what we need to do. And Novig and ProfitX don't limit at all. So they've been very helpful for me to prolong my arbitrage betting with these unlimited accounts. And then last, you can expand to offshore books. I've taken that route over the last couple of weeks. I'm seeing a ton of value. Some of the offshores don't limit, which is exactly what we want. So these are all ways to kind of extend your arbitrage betting career, because limits are inevitable. Most of the sports books are going to limit you. We'll need to be creative in finding ways to keep it going. All right, and just some books where you should avoid pregame arbs. So BetMGM, DraftKings, and Caesars. So these books are extremely valuable for live arbitrage betting. They're always off. There's a ton of value. If you stick to live arbs here, you'll probably last 2, 3, maybe 4 months. If you bet pregame arbs on these books, you'll be limited probably within a week. So there is short-term money to be made with pregame arbs on these books, but I would not do it. I would stick to live arbs, get a couple months out of these, and then move on once they do limit you. But again, you can get maybe 3 to 4 months out of these books, maybe longer, if you stick to live arbs. All right, and this is just what my current setup is. So again, I get questions every day. I'm limited everywhere. How are you still arbing? So these are the current sports books that I'm using. So FanDuel for pregame and live, DraftKings for live only, ProfitX, NoVig, Rebet, Sportsino. Again, I had it for a day. I withdrew. I'm not using Sportsino anymore. Then MyBookie, Bet105, and Bookmaker. These are the 3 offshores. A lot of value with these 3. But these are what I'm currently working with and still making a couple $100 every day. And then my daily schedule, like I said earlier, I work a regular 9 to 5. If I get a pregame arbitrage notification and I'm not in a meeting or I'm not in the middle of something, I'll go ahead and lock in that bet right there and make some bucks while I'm working. Then, as I said earlier, from 5 to 7 p.m., I'll just keep the pregame feed open and lock in whenever I can. Anything about 2% or higher, I'll lock in. If it's a heavy game day, I'll maybe wait for 3% or higher. But again, some days I get down close to $30,000 in pregame volume. So this is the window when you want to get down all that money for pregame. And then from like 8 to 10 p.m., I'll live arb mostly with FanDuel, DraftKings, MyBookie. Obviously, if you guys have unlimited accounts still, you can use BetMGM and Caesars for live arbing as well and make even more money with live arbing. So this is what my current setup looks like. This is my schedule that I currently work with, and I'm still able to make hundreds every day. So it's still possible once you have limits. All right, now just some tips and tricks. So you want to put in the time and be patient. The more time you invest, the more profit you'll make. This is a skill that takes a few days or a few weeks to learn. So just be patient with yourself. You're going to get faster. When I first started, I got so frustrated. I was ready to quit. I wanted to give up. I thought there's no way people actually do this. But I'm so happy that I stuck with it because, again, it's a skill. It takes some time. And when you master it, it's actually pretty easy. And you're going to make a ton of money while you're doing this. And also be patient for the arbitrage opportunities as well, especially when you're live arbing. Sometimes you go a half hour with nothing, and then you'll just see a book that is way off on a game and make a ton of money in that moment. So just be patient with yourself and be patient with the arbs. Next, in most instances, you want to lock in the side that is plus EV first, or the outlier as compared to the other sports books. There are a few exceptions here. So the first one, in low scoring sports, you want to bet the over first if it's a live arbitrage bet. And here's why. So let's say you have a soccer game, the score is 3-2, the live total is set at 5.5. If you bet on the over first and then a goal is scored immediately after, you won your bet right away, which is awesome. However, on the flip side, same situation, scores 3-2, live total is 5.5. You bet on the under first and then a goal is scored right after, you can lose your bet right away. So in sports like hockey, soccer, baseball, always want to bet on the over first if it is a live total. Another exception is if both books are plus EV, you want to lock in the minus side first, and here's why. So let's say you have an arbitrage opportunity, minus 200 on one side, plus 300 on the other side. If you bet the minus 200 side first, and the plus 300 side closes, and then you have to let it ride, that minus 200 side is much more likely to win than the plus 300 side. So again, if both sides are plus EV, lock in the minus side first. And just some more tips and tricks. So when you have unlimited accounts, I would avoid player props and lines that are way off. If you consistently hammer those player props and the error lines, you will get limited much faster. Next, I mentioned this earlier, don't use an arbitrage calculator. Just do your best to make the payouts match on both sides. Doesn't have to be perfect. As long as they're within a couple dollars, you'll still make a profit. Mention this as well, try to look like a degenerate bettor. Play some random parlays for $10 here and there. It's not going to cost you in the long run. And maybe you'll hit one, who knows. Next, don't withdraw unless you have to. So personally, I only withdraw if one book is down to 0, just because withdrawals put more eyes on your accounts, and we're arbitrage bettors. We don't want them looking at our account activity and all of our bets. So only withdraw when absolutely necessary. Next, avoid flip error lines. I have another slide on this. We'll touch on that shortly. And then do not bet on reverse middles. I have a slide on that as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so some flip error lines. So here is an example right here. So Utah minus 24.5 was minus 220. Minus 23.5 was minus 260. Minus 22.5 was minus 305. Minus 21.5, you would expect to be like minus 340, minus 350, just to continue this pattern. They have it at minus 110. This is a clear error line on flip. If you bet this, they're going to avoid your bet. And if you consistently bet error lines on flip, they'll ban you. Flip doesn't limit. They'll just ban you right then and there. You don't lose your money. You can still cash out, but you're going to lose access to your flip, which is extremely valuable. I've been hearing more and more people getting banned on flips, so maybe they're really starting to tighten things up. But don't bet on these error lines. You'll last much longer. And then we'll talk about some middles and reverse middles. So a middle is an opportunity to win both sides of a bet. So here's an example here, under 7.5 and over 6.5. If the total lands on exactly 7, you're going to win both sides of your bet. That's a middle. Another example, we have plus 3.5 and minus 2.5. So if the favorite wins by exactly 3, both sides cover. You're going to win both sides of your bet. That's a middle. Reverse middle is the opposite. You could possibly lose both sides of your bet. And I have been reverse middle a couple times. So example 1, under 6.5 and over 7.5. Total lands on exactly 7. You're going to lose both bets. You're not under 6.5. You're not over 7.5. And another example, plus 2.5 and minus 3.5. So if a team wins by exactly 3, neither side covers. You're going to lose both bets. This is a reverse middle. So here are some ways to identify both of these. So for a middle, and you're dealing with totals, the under total should be a larger number than the over total. So under 7.5, over 6.5. That under 7.5 number is larger. For spreads, the underdog spread number should be a larger number than their favorite spread number. So plus 3.5, minus 2.5. The plus 3.5 number is larger. That's a middle. Reverse middle, exact opposite. So the under total will be a lower number than the over total. So under 7.5, sorry, under 6.5, over 7.5. You want to avoid those. You can possibly lose a lot of money there. And then for spreads, the underdog spread number will be a lower number than the favorite spread number. So plus 2.5, minus 3.5. Again, neither side is going to cover there. And you'll see these a lot when you're live arbing. Lines are constantly moving. They create middle opportunities. They create reverse middle opportunities. You just have to be very careful when you are live arbing. All right, and just an example of a middle here. Some left side flip, right side FanDuel. So Gafford over 8.5 points at plus 140. Here was under 9.5 points at minus 125. So this is a profitable opportunity. The plus money odds number is greater than the minus money odds number. And you can see in this situation here, both bets won. It landed on exactly 9. It's over 8.5 and under 9.5. And here's the math at the bottom. So total amount that we bet, 281 plus 375 is 656. If just the over 8.5 side wins, we have a payout of 674 minus that 656 for a profit of $18. If under 9.5 wins, we have a payout of 675 minus the amount that we bet for a profit of $19. If it lands on exactly 9, we get both payouts, subtract the amount that we bet for a total profit of $693. So middles are great when you hit them. The Oddsjam arbitrage tool will pick these up, which is great. It's rare that they hit, but sometimes they will, and you'll make a ton of money. All right, and then before we move on to Q&A, I think it's really important to know how to read an Oddsjam bet slip. So on the top portion here, it tells you your ROI and your sports books. This is Flip and FanDuel for a 4.67% ROI. Underneath that, it tells you what it's for, so player points, and it tells you the odds of the arbitrage bet. So Flip is minus 135, FanDuel plus 164. Underneath that, you have your one-click bet link. So if it says game, it'll take you to the game within the sports book. If it says bet, it'll pull up the actual bet slips within the sports book, which is a huge help. And this bottom half here shows the odds at other sports books. and also the current odds at your sports books. This section updates in real time as the odds change. And for this example here, Cliff was minus 135. It's still minus 135. That's good. FanDuel is plus 164, but now it shows the line is blank. That means the odds have closed. This is no longer a profitable arbitrage opportunity. And again, typically I would jump into some demos, but we're going to skip those for today since we do have the ArbFather on the line. So I'm going to open up the mics. I'll give ArbFather a chance to introduce himself, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. Just give me 1 second. All right, ArbFather, you should be able to jump in.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. Yeah, first off, thank you again, Arbitrage, for continuing to do this every week and having me. I'll definitely be on here every Friday night to help out with the Q&A. Like I said, I think the presentation's awesome, and I wish someone was doing this back when I started. Definitely helps flatten that learning curve. So, this is huge. Great information. A little bit about me. I've been doing this since April of 2023. I started with 5K back then. I've been able to run that up to over $300,000 since then. It's definitely a grind, but it's really easy money, to be honest. You got to put in the time. It's a little bit of a learning curve. There's a skill to it, like our thief said, but you can make money from your couch betting on sports. Who wouldn't want to do this? But yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit about me. I'm on Twitter all the time and stuff, talking to most of you guys in the DMs, but we definitely want to give you guys a chance to kind of have like a open forum discussion. So if anybody has some questions, just kind of fire them away at us.
You guys should be able to come off mute and ask your questions.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So I just had a question. So I've been doing it since the first of the year, and I've actually DM'd both of you. Had a lot of success with the live arbs, with the pre-games, but I'm starting to get limited on a lot of books where I've had to just get rid of them. So I know live arbing is the way to go, and I had the 7-day free trial for Platinum, and I was grinding, trying to do it for a couple hours a night, but it just seemed like I wasn't able to get to a lot of the lines before they moved. And my question for you guys is there a percentage that you've seen for live arbs that seems to be the one that you'll be able to get down? So I was using like the DraftKings and the Bet MGM with one click and just doing 2 books, but basically anytime I'd click straight into the app, it seemed like the lines moved. But is that just for like the bigger, like 10 and 11% ROIs? Should I be looking at like 5 and 6% for live arbs, or what do you guys suggest?
No, definitely a good question, bro. And something I learned like my first year doing live arbs was like, don't always go for the one on top, right? And this is just kind of me like speculating, but hundreds of people looking at the same exact bets every night. Everybody's going to go for that top 10% arb, right? So it's not a horrible idea to maybe scroll down a couple, pick off that 4 or 5%. I usually have it set to like 2 to 3% usually for live arbs, depending on how big the slate is. So I'll sit there and usually pluck those away, which with much more success than double-digit arbs. I mean, we definitely will catch an occasional double-digit arb, but I think you're gonna usually fall between like 3 to 6% most of the time. So that's definitely something you can try. You can kind of maybe just try to go for like the ones that are in the middle and not like those crazy big ones. Also, those crazy big ones could be more like error lines too, that like, the books will kind of pick up a little bit quicker. So that's like a suggestion that you could definitely try if you give it another go.
Yeah, I said I think I will. My plan is to try and I'll get Platinum back at the end of the month after I've made some decent profits. But I think it was just putting all those top ones at the top, and by the time I scrolled down to the lower live ones, they were gone too. So I think that makes sense.
Did you try the stoppage tool at the time? I don't know if you had already did the stoppage or you just like in like the live.
Yeah, I tried that as well. I think I was actually you that I reached out to. I put it down to like 2 books one click, get the book open, and I even put it on the stoppage tool. But I think that was my issue, is that it would still feed me all the ones at the top. It would go by percentage. So all I was seeing were these massive ones, and I wasn't focusing on the lower ones. And I think that was probably my mistake, because I've now learned since then, with even pregame arbs, is sometimes if you go for those 2%ers rather than the 5%ers, they'll stick around a hell of a lot longer than the bigger ones will. So
100%, bro. And you can mess around with the filters too. Like, there's a way to, just like how you can set a minimum ROI, there's like a way you can set a maximum. I wouldn't really set the maximum too low, but you can kind of play with it and see if you can kind of find a happy medium in there.
I will do that. Thank you.
How do you get away with not using a calculator when you're live betting, or even for pre-match?
The best way is to try to match the payouts. I think ArbThief might have had a slide on that. But yeah, most of the books, right, like a DraftKings, an MGM, a Fliff, most of these books will show, you'll type in like, say, $200 to win $200 on a plus 100 line. Your total payout is $400. Most of them show that exact way. It doesn't have to be exactly on the dollar. If it's within like, $2-3, it's close enough. One book that's like a little tricky with this would be like FanDuel. So FanDuel only shows how much you would risk. So say you like risk, and then how much you would win. So you kind of have to do like a little bit of mental math. But if it's like a round number, usually I try to use like round numbers with FanDuel, 100, 150, 200 to do like that quick mental math. And then I'll try to get that exact payout or as close as I can on that other book, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a little bit of trial and error as well. So like, I'll know on the minus side that I'll have to bet more money than I would on the plus side. So let's say I get down $200 on the minus side. Well, then I'll maybe put like 150 or 140 on the plus side, and just tweak it a little bit. If I'm too high, lower the amount a little bit. If I'm too low, raise it a little bit. Just try to get as close as possible to the payout on the other side, and then lock them both in.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the guys that are using their cell phones, because if I use a laptop, I could lock them in like really quick seconds. But when I use a cell phone, how quick are you doing this in like 5 seconds or 10 seconds?
Yeah, so I started using just one cell phone originally for a while. I now use 2 cell phones, but yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of like muscle memory, like anything. Like, I suck at computers. I try to do computers, and it just slowed me down between location issues or like tabs not opening up quick enough. But with my iPhone, I just know this thing at the back of my hand. I can just, swipe up, swipe over. Like, definitely, it's a skill too. It comes with practice and stuff. But now I use 2 phones, and that's helped like tremendously. So I'll have like the Oddsjam app on one phone with like the one-click books, and then I'll have on my other phone like the offshores up, and I try to make sure like they're all logged in and stuff like that too. So I kind of, it looks a little crazy, like I'm double fisting friggin' 2 cell phones in my hands at all times, but it works, So it's definitely whatever's like the best with you. Some guys swear about, computers, laptops have 5 screens and they can't do the cell phone kind of thing, and vice versa.
Yeah. And so I guess you never done the laptop. So the thing on the laptop, like when you're limited, I'll put like, say DraftKings comes up. I'll put in the amount, but it's just spinning. And by the time I know if it's going to accept it, I'm like, man, the odds are going to change on FanDuel. So that's the scariest thing ever.
No,
It don't do that on the cell phone?
No, it does the same thing. It actually doesn't spin, but there's kind of like a loading bar. And that loading bar can take anywhere from pre-game, it goes almost instant. Like it'll be like a split second, but live a lot of times can be 5 seconds, maybe up to 10 seconds sometimes. So it can definitely be a little sketchy. But usually the good thing about DraftKings is they're a pretty like recreational book. Their odds are pretty bad. So most of the time they're like that EV side anyways. So if there is going to be a book that's going to move, it's most likely them. So, that way you really won't get caught like one-sided. I always suggest hitting that DraftKings side first to make sure it goes through and then following up on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hey
I have a
guys,
question. So,
oh, sorry.
just a quick question. So yeah, I've been arbing for about a month and a half now. I've had some success as well, and also been limited like some of these other guys. So I'm moving into using Fliff, and I didn't know if is Fliff a one-click book or not? Do you guys use it like manually? Because sometimes when I use the one-click, it just takes me to like a web browser with no pick, and I'm kind of confused if that's on my end or if I'm doing something wrong. So I was just wondering.
I know on the cell phone it's not a one-click. I'm not really too sure about the laptop. Like I know like when I hit it on like my cell phone, it does like the same thing. It kind of brings up like the web browser version of it, and then it would make me like re-log in and all that stuff, which would just take way too much time. So yeah, I'm just usually manually doing my flip.
Hey guys, quick question for you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. First off, want to say I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's a really positive thing you guys are doing for the community here. But I just wanted to say on a quick side note, so I'm brand new to this, and forgive me if this question seems a bit basic here, but in Vancouver, BC, I'm limited to 22 books, and I have roughly about $1,200 that I can work with. Now, would you suggest that I try to do as many of the 22 books as possible and try to spread out that money that I have? Or should I just limit myself to a couple of books at first and perhaps have a little bit more in each account?
So that's actually a really good question. First, I wish I had 22 books, so enjoy that. That'll keep you going for a while. But
Thank you.
I would, with $1,200, I'd maybe start with only 3 sports books and put like $400 in each, maybe 4 if you wanted to. With 22 books, if you were to spread out the 1,200, you'd have a really small amount in each. But I'd start with maybe 3 or 4 books, and then, as you get limited, you can expand to other sports books.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey guys. Hello.
What's up, bro?
Hey, what's going on, man? Not really a question. To Daniel, I use a laptop. And no, Fliff does not have the one click. It doesn't go straight to the bet slip, so it's the same on a laptop. But I heard a lot of you guys talking about trying to match payouts. Now I have the platinum plan on Oddsjam, and when my ARBs come up, like I can put in my bet amount for the large side, and it tells me exactly what I need to play on both sides. Now maybe I know on the app it doesn't do that. You got to kind of figure it out. But if you're using a laptop, Oddsjam will actually tell you how much to bet on each side, so you don't have to really do that mental math.
No, that's a great point. Especially when you guys are starting out, you don't have limits. That's like probably the best way to do it. The only way that it does get tricky eventually is once you start getting limits. You might have, say, $200-$300 base, wager size or something like that on like the favorite side, but some of the books might not allow you to get that down. So then there'll be a lot of manually adjusting and stuff like that. But Chris, that's a
Gotcha.
great point though to, for guys that are just starting out and that don't have any limits yet. That's the best way to do it.
Hammer that. Yeah.
Yep.
Whatever you put in there and go for it.
Definitely.
I got a quick question. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So if I have like around about a $10,000 bankroll, what should be the bet sizings that I'm using? Is there like a percentage of your bankroll you're supposed to be using, or how does that work? Or what do you guys recommend?
So I don't really think there's a right or wrong answer here. So when I started with $600, I was putting half of my bankroll every time on the one side. But with 10,000, I'd probably do like maybe $300 or $400 on the minus side. That should make you a pretty nice profit.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
No problem.
Question. Did you guys start out with, because I gradually worked my way up. I started out at like $50. Then when I started hitting the $300 ones, that's when they started limiting me. But someone just starting out, is it feasible to start out right out the gate with the $300 ones?
I think it definitely depends what books it is. You know, if it's like a FanDuel, you're more than fine to do that because even with their limits, it's reasonable. If it's any of like these exchanges too that won't limit, absolutely. You know, you could send the whole 10,000 if they let you without many worries about getting limited. But yeah, a lot of those Fanatics, an MGM, an ESPN, a Bet365, Bally Bet. It honestly doesn't even matter, you know, if you're betting 50 to 100 or you're betting 250 to 500. Usually these books are gonna limit generally in the same time frame within like a week to 3 weeks, just because they're super recreational. They go off like the closing line value, or you know, if you get up a decent amount on them real quick, they'll just cut you off. But
Yeah. So it seems like I got to get quick at. Well, FanDuel is easy because it's always one click bet, but those other ones like my what's it called, like Bookmaker,
yep.
Bet one, like a lot of those other ones, I'm gonna have to get quick at finding the play as soon as it comes up, like navigating on the app or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
That's
usually
probably-
like a good tip for like offshores too, like I'll kind of narrow it down. So say like, you know, there's a bunch of NBA on tonight and a bunch of college basketball. There might be too much stuff on my screen. So I might just take college basketball out and be like, hey, I'm just focusing on NBA for the next hour, using these 4 sports books, and say it's like FanDuel, DraftKings, Bookmaker, and MyBookie. Put that in a filter with just NBA. And then I'll go on like that MyBookie or that Bookmaker, and I'll already be on, say, the NBA page, right? So I don't even have to like be on the search bar and search Boston Celtics, or I'm not on the NFL page or the college basketball page, and I have to hit a bunch of buttons. You know, just trying to eliminate any extra button clicking will definitely help.
That's a good tip. Thank you for that.
No doubt, bro.
That's something. That's with experience right there. Right on.
Gotcha.
Tracy, a note I've heard from like other people is like, say you're doing like a bunch of like $50 to $100 bets, and then you just happen to start hammering a bunch of like $300 bets. The book will kind of be like, wait, why was this guy doing like $50 bets, and all of a sudden he's doing a bunch of like $300 bets? So I've gotten like advice to like kind of work your way up like more and more, so it's not like as obvious, but
that makes sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
2 quick questions, you guys. This could be for either of you, but do you guys like for like the same game, do you guys like try to just do like say 1 over, 1 under, and then like throw that game out? Or have you guys ever messed with like going back and like say like later in the game and doing like another over under?
Yeah, to be honest, I'll just kind of hit whatever, dude. I'll hit the same game multiple times. I don't like to hit the same exact bet though multiple times. I'd kind of avoid doing that. Like, you know, then the book might be like, all right, like why'd this guy hammer over 230 4 times in a row? You know, we were clearly maybe had an error line or something like that, and that could kind of draw attention. But no, I mean, I would hit, you know, the over, and then if the, you know, another ARB comes up 5 minutes later on, you know, the spread, or another alternate over or something like that, or a first half over, team total over, something like that, I think that's fine. But you know, if they make a real clear error or something like that, like I wouldn't hit the same line multiple times.
Gotcha. Thank you. Last question. This might be more for you, TheArbFather, since you've been doing a little bit longer, but I've just been like hesitant to get into like the offshore books. Just for like, I'm kind of a by the book type of guy, I guess, but just like find like taxes and stuff. I know they have like the Bitcoin thing, which I don't know if it's like a thing at the moment or not that the US government cares about, but my initial thought was like, okay, you know, withdraw your winnings in Bitcoin, just report your Bitcoin as income, and then you're good. But I've had other people say like they're starting to look into Bitcoin and like wondering like where did that money initially come from? Like how did you get all this Bitcoin? Blah blah blah. Have you ever like plowed and dealt with that?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I could say is, I've been using the offshores for probably like 5, 6, 7 years now. So before I even got into arbitrage or even, betting, um, betting wasn't legal in Massachusetts yet. So I'd already used like Bet Online, Bovada, MyBookie for years. I've never had any type of hiccups come with them with like payouts or anything like that. So, like the main six that Arbitrage put on a slideshow, those guys are really reputable and, they're safe to use. With the taxes thing, same thing. I mean, I've never gotten like a 1099 or any type of form from Coinbase or even, any of those that like I've used for sending crypto. So I don't think it's something that like, the government's main priority at the moment. Obviously Bitcoin is kind of blowing up and it's kind of becoming more mainstream, even like with like states and the government trying to get involved. So it might become more of a thing in the future, but I think to be honest, right now it's kind of swept under the rug.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, I can answer that one a little bit as well from a different perspective. So my real job is I actually work in money laundering for a bank. I don't think the government will have a concern with the Bitcoin deposits coming in. I think your bank could question where those funds are coming from. But again, you don't have to tell them where they're coming from. The worst they can do is close your account. So bank could close your account and have an issue, but the government shouldn't really ask where those funds are coming from. I just file taxes on them and say that they're extra income and move on.
Is Bitcoin definitely the way to go for offshore funding?
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's probably the easiest to work with.
Thanks, Arbitrage.
No problem.
As far as like just a thing that I saw on these videos on YouTube, a lot of books won't even send you a form unless you hit like one big bet. So like a parlay for like $20,000, like they'll send you a form at the end of the year. But a lot of them you can hit $600, $500 bets and they won't send you a form at the end of the year. It's just like if you hit one big one, then that's when they'll report it to the IRS and the taxes and stuff.
Yeah, the whole tax thing's like pretty gray area. Even like every state seems to be a little bit different. I'm definitely not a master there, but I can say like the only two sports books I've ever gotten a 1099 from were like Fliff and Underdog. None of like the major domestic sports books ever gave me a form. I think it's more like self-reporting kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, obviously you don't want to screw over the IRS or anything like that. So reach out to an accountant or something like that to be safe.
I dealt with this last year actually with I talked to multiple accountants. People like accountant to accountant will say different things. So like the TurboTax people, they like were confused, came up with something. They tried to go like bet by bet and it was just a mess. But I went to like a family friend and she's like, oh yeah, I just dealt with someone that had like millions of dollars worth of bets. And she's like, the thing that I've always done, and she was on the other side as like an attorney for like defending people. So she was just like, it's like bets won, bets lost, and then what you want to report is like if you made money, your like what you made is added on to your gross income. So if you have like your 9 to 5 job, you say you make 100,000, and then you make $10,000 betting, your gross is $110,000, and then you're taxed on that like anything else. But another side note is if you lose money gambling, you can't deduct your losses. So say you lost $10,000 and you made $100,000 from your 9 to 5. You think, oh, I only made $90,000 this year, including my gambling. But that's not the case. You can't deduct losses in gambling. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Makes total sense. Total sense. And it's funny how it works one way and not the other.
I got one last quick question for you guys. With the arbitrage betting, the player props, do you guys like stay away from more player props and try to just aim for alternate and main markets, or Because I've been told that like player props obviously can get you wager limited a lot quicker.
So it really depends on the sports book. So like if it's a no vig or profit X or flip, like they're not going to limit you. Feel free to bet all the player props that you want. But if it's like a DraftKings or a FanDuel or MGM, I would only bet a player prop if it's live, because again, they can't see that you're beating any closing line value. The pregame player props, they can definitely see you're beating closing line value, and those definitely get you limited much faster.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thanks.
No problem.
The limits, guys. If you leave a book alone for a long time after you've been limited, does that help at all raise your limit back up, or once you're limited, that's it, you're down?
Yeah, sadly, once you're limited, it's game over for that book.
I have one more quick question for you guys. I think one of you mentioned that it's maybe not the best idea to withdraw when you can avoid it. So if you're trying to rebalance your books when one gets low, are you using like the low hold tool from Oddsjam, or what's the best way to do that?
You could do that. But I think the one time I will withdraw is if one book is down to 0 or down to, an amount where it's not even possible to arb anymore. So in that case, I think it's okay to withdraw. But I try to withdraw as little as possible.
Have you guys experienced different limits live as opposed to pre-match?
Yeah, that's definitely huge too. So that's just like another portion of it is like there's so much more longevity, especially with live arbs compared to, some pregame. Like an example, like with DraftKings pregame, especially on props, I might be able to get down anywhere from $10 to $70. Even a lot of main lines, total spreads, money lines, it might be $50 to maybe $100. But when we jump to live, I can get down, depending on the sport. College is a little bit less, maybe 100 or 125. But if it's NBA, NFL, I can get down 200, 300, 400, 500 sometimes if it's like a heavy minus side favorite, like a minus 250, minus 300 line. So the limits definitely are different for every market too. So market, pregame, live, it's definitely good just to jump on and, try to hit some stuff and just play around with like what your limits are. I was really shocked. Like 2 nights ago, I was doing live tennis EV, and pregame tennis, I get like $20 to $50, and I was able to get down over $200 live on DraftKings tennis. So definitely play around with it. It's all different.
Yeah, because I actually just got limited. Just got limited on Caesars, and then when I opened my account the other day, it greeted me as if I was new. I was like, "Huh, that's interesting." So I tried some points lines, and they let me put down whatever I want. So I went to bet live today, and did a point line, and they were like, "Nah, $50."
So weird. Yeah. I've actually had probably at least like half a dozen people message me within the last like week or so saying that they've been getting really limited on Caesars, which is weird because when I had first started, it was kind of the Caesars and FanDuel known as like the 2 domestic books that, won't ever limit you or like hardly will limit you and whatever. But Caesars has definitely taken like a different approach in the last year or so. But again, keep trying it too, like depending, sometimes even later in the game, like I can get down more than when the game just started, stuff like that. There's a lot of like nuances for especially Caesars and DraftKings.
Has anyone tried arbing with a live in-person sportsbook? I have a reverse right by me, and I did go one time to see if the lines match what's in the Oddsjam app, and they do. Definitely makes me nervous with the big guys in the casino roaming around. So I don't think I'll try it, but I'm just curious if anybody has heard of that before.
Which book did you say you have by you?
Bet Rivers.
Oh man, you could be a millionaire.
There's one in Chicago.
But yeah, I've done this probably like 5 times or so. I've done it at FanDuel mostly. I've done it at the ESPN and a DraftKings, but FanDuel I had the most luck. But yeah, no, I've done it. The FanDuel that's in Connecticut is huge. There's like 100 kiosks. The place is huge. It doesn't feel like anybody's watching over your shoulder. The DraftKings in Connecticut is real small, 10 kiosks or something like that. They can kind of see almost every kiosk, so it's like a little sketchy. But yeah, no, if it's like a decent location and you're not in like window view, there's probably people watching on the cameras and stuff too. But I don't know. I would just kind of keep it low key. Definitely something you can do though.
And you've had like your phone out, checking your phone constantly, and then plugging away at the terminal and no issues.
Yeah, pretty much. I would just sit there and have like a stoppage tool on, and then maybe like FanDuel selected with like 2 other like offshore books that I know I can get down like large amounts or something like that, and then just kind of seeing what opportunities popped up and like maybe like a timeout or halftime. Had the cash on me, sitting near a kiosk, and then I would just go in the kiosk, feed it, and try to hit it. And then I might sit there for 5 minutes or something like that with the kiosk loaded with $1,000 or something and see if anything else pops up.
Good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So what is the, I have 2 questions. The stoppage tool, is that for like whenever you're live and you've got it on auto, reset every time an opportunity pops up and it just you click on one, you one click bet and open a window. And does it stop there for you? Is that what it's the case, or does it give you a pause button?
So the stoppage tool is actually pulling up any game that's in a timeout or like a halftime, end of the first quarter. So when the game actually isn't like in play. And for those situations, the lines are obviously going to move a lot slower. So you should be able to lock in more with the stoppage tool.
I see. Okay. Next question. Talking about longevity, doing this on live, would you recommend, is it okay to hit the same book every night, several $1,000s, $10,000 between the same 2 or 3 or 4 books every night? And live is, or should you take a break? Should you do it 2 days in a row and take 2 days off? What do you think?
I think it's definitely okay. Just kind of speaking from experience, like even my limited DraftKings, like I've used maybe some, other DraftKings in the past as well, but my initial DraftKings like I've ever used, I'm using that right now. I've probably pumped, I could check like $500,000 or more into that account. And my limits haven't really got anywhere. It's like I'm limited, and I usually put $5,000 a night into that account, and nothing really else has happened. Same with FanDuel. I still have like the same 10% limits on FanDuel. I wager with them probably the most out of any book, and haven't experienced any extra limits there. Especially if you're matching up to offshore too. Bookmaker, Bet 105, Bet Online won't limit main lines most of the time either. So if it's like a MGM or something, they might get worse on like their live, or maybe Caesars kind of seems like they might gradually get worse on live too. But I think DraftKings, FanDuel with any offshore book, you're pretty good.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hey guys, I just have a quick question. You guys talked about kind of staying away from DraftKings and MGM and a couple others, I guess, for pregame, especially pregame props. Which, when you talk about pregame, that's basically what you're talking about, right? There's mostly just going to be player props, pregame ARBs wise. Is it? Do you guys find it okay if you take the side of an ARB the opposite of EV? So basically, it's maybe like an average line on the DraftKings side, and maybe the EV play is on Profit X. Do you feel like you can hammer that, or would you still kind of stay away because it's pregame?
That's actually a really good question, because if you click into the boxes and you kind of check out where all the other books are at and stuff like that, I'd say there's like especially on DraftKings or like MGM, I'd say there's probably like an 80% chance that is the EV side. But there is instances that I see it every night that they are aligned with FanDuel, Pinnacle, and especially like a Bet Online player prop builder or a Profit X or no vig might be sitting on an island. And, you know, that's probably like the EV side or something like that. So
Yep.
I would say that's not a bad approach if you are going to take a pregame prop there, but I would recommend to most likely not do it just to be
Just
safe.
shut them off for pregame.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to be safe. The account's worth, you know, way more than hitting pregame props for a week or two if you can get 4 months, no limits live.
Okay. That's fair. Thank you.
No problem.
Any more questions?
I guess one quick question, guys. With Picket that you guys were showing earlier for tracking, I have Circa Sportsbook that I use for a good number of my bets, and it's not integrated with Picket. Do you guys have any other recommendations for non-Picket software or maybe a way to manually add things in there?
Yeah, so I have to do a lot of manually tracking just because I'd say probably almost half of my books that I regularly use are on Picket. So if you ever see me post results, a lot of times it'll be like the Oddsjam tracker. I track all my ARBs on there, all my bonuses on there. I try to get them in real time. Sometimes I can't, but if I hit an ARB, I'll just write it down in my notes real quick, and then I'll go back and kind of manually enter it to, you know, make sure everything adds up. For Picket, I still track like EV over there. So anytime I take like an EV bet for FanDuel, Fliff, DraftKings, Caesars, you know, it'll show up on Picket. You can make tags on Picket and like select say EV. So I do that. I know some guys just do spreadsheets for everything. The tracking thing can be like a little annoying when, you know, you venture into books that aren't on there.
All right, we'll take one more question. Do you guys have any?
Yeah, how can you guys start with a small bankroll? Like, what's the tip?
It really depends. I mean, how small of a bankroll were you looking to start with? You're on mute if you were trying to talk.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if you heard me. How small of a bankroll were you looking to start with?
Like 400, give or take.
Yeah, so that's not far off from what I started with.
Oh, you started with that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, so that's actually not far off from what I started with. If you're using $400, I would only start with 2 sports books. Maybe start with like a FanDuel and a DraftKings, just because you can cash out almost immediately with those. That way you can move your funds around. You know, if you went on one sports book, lose on the other, you can kind of rebalance your accounts.
All right, so what about the candy books? Can I like just stay away from that from now if I start, or?
I mean, you could just know that they're probably not going to last too long.
How long you think?
I mean, it's different for every book, to be honest. And I also want to make sure that those books allow you to cash out pretty fast, because again, you're going to have to move money around a lot early on.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I thank you guys all for joining. Hopefully this was beneficial. ArbFather, thanks again for taking time out of your Friday nights to answer some questions. I'll speak for both of us. Our DMs are always open. We genuinely want to help you guys make money. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them over. And have a good night, guys.
All right, later, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.